Hello and welcome back to another Thursday edition of Whiskey Uncorked. My name is Brian, and today we are going to be looking at a brand new release, the Ardbeg Spectacular. All right, the Ardbeg Spectacular. This is their Feis release this year. This is released in celebration of the Feis Festival on the island of Isla. All the distilleries on the island do these special releases for this festival. And full disclosure, this is not a bottle that I was going to be buying if I wasn't doing the channel. And even with the channel, I would have been happy to probably skip this personally. I think like many enthusiasts, they just kind of get over the kind of out of whack pricing and some of the marketing, and then the whiskeys themselves, at least for some people, have just not been up to par or not up to the pricing. So the most recent Ardbeg special release I bought was the Fermutation back 2021 or something like that, somewhere in there. And yeah, it was a good whiskey. I didn't mind it at all, but the price and how much different it was from the 10, it just didn't justify it for me. And but I have gotten to try a number of them. My brother was a big Ardbeg fan, as we've talked about on this channel before, and I would get samples and blinds, and pretty much the same thing. I've always thought that these releases were fine. They were good. They may not have performed particularly well in blinds, but never thought that they were bad. But just when you match up the whole price value proposition, I was just always happy to skip them. But when I saw that this year's release was a port influenced Ardbeg, and having the channel and thought it would be a good discussion point, I decided to jump on it. And I actually did like a pre-order of this for the first time. I went through Total Wine's concierge service, got $5 off. This would retail at, it looks to retail at most places about 130 US dollars. I want to say this was about 110 pounds, I believe. So definitely pricey for a non-age stated whiskey. But let's talk about what makes up this particular bottle. So as the label states, this is a combination of port casks and ex-bourbon casks, apparently a first for the distillery. And we have recently learned that the port casks were actually Quinta Ruban casks from the Glenmorangie distillery. Glenmorangie is Ardbeg's sister distillery, both under the LVMH, the Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy umbrella, and Bill Lumsden is the kind of master whiskey maker for both of these distilleries. And I believe he was on the Whiskey Cast podcast recently, and he went into some more detail about the casks that went into making up the Spectacular. So again, these are refill port casks previously used to make the Glenmorangie Quinta Ruban, which we recently reviewed, which is finished in those port casks. And from my understanding, that what he said was that the port casks themselves have contained Ardbeg spirit for 13 or 15 years, which is great to hear that we're getting some well-aged Ardbeg in here. Although in some refill port casks, and then most likely this has been blended with 10-year-old bourbon casks, a la their standard 10-year-old. So generally speaking, these releases do contain some 10-ish year old bourbon cask. Ardbeg does not do any cask finishing, or very rarely does at the very least. So we're getting some fully matured refill port casks and some form of ex-bourbon casks. And you can kind of tell by the color that this is not going to be a super port forward whiskey, which was a little disappointing for me when I first saw port influenced. Even on the back, I think in the other marketing materials, it says matured in highly sought after port wine casks and classic ex-bourbon barrels, which is kind of BS because they didn't have to look real hard to find these highly sought after port casks, because they just had them shipped over from their sister distillery that has probably quite a few of them just laying around. All right, marketing hype aside, that's basically what we know about this. The age statement on this would probably be somewhere in the 8, 9, 10 years old, but there is some older stock in here. Does that justify the $130 price point? We'll see. But yeah, this is 46%. It's non-chill filtered, and it is natural color. And let's get into some tasting notes. All right, so just sitting here, you can smell the Ardbeg coming right off the glass. The whole room smells like it, basically. So you are definitely not losing any of that classic Ardbeg punch. Yeah, it's all there, that ashy smoky, bonfirey campfire. And the big difference with this one is there's a pretty nice dose of sweetness. It's not coming off as just super desserty, like maybe a fully matured first fill port cask would, but there's definitely some sweetness. It is brighter, more light than, you know, some super dark, real heavily cask influenced whiskey. You can definitely tell that you're dealing with some refill casks here. All right, so I'm getting some peanut brittle. An interesting note I've been getting on this is just cardboard. And it's not really in a bad way or anything like that. It just seems to kind of be in there. It's kind of maybe in contrast to a more, you know, dry hay. Like it seems to have a little bit of that cardboard quality to it. There, I think the bottle does mention some menthol. I definitely am getting kind of like a honey cough drop, which I also get on the palate sometimes. But yeah, the honey cough drop, honey halls, which has some menthol in there as well, is definitely in here. There is a floral quality here. Again, the bottle, I believe in their tasting notes says like perfumed lavender. I could go with that. There is kind of a perfumey quality overall to it, but it's not off-putting. It's nice. It's kind of integrated with everything, but for me, it's more of a general florality. Some very interesting things, pretty well balanced, and maybe the one thing that's a little out of balance is the Ardbeg smokiness, which you probably, if you're buying this bottle, you probably kind of want to begin with, if you're a big Ardbeg fan. So yeah, I actually like it quite a bit. All right, let's see how that pretty nice nose translates on the palate. Cheers. So it has a really nice mouthfeel. It's pretty substantially oily. Definitely clings to your palate, the roof of your mouth. You can really just keep on tasting this over and over again. This has a real nice smoky, peaty punch to it without being overly peppery. It is ashy. You do get some ashy bitterness, but it's pretty subtle. And if you like Ardbeg, you're probably not going to be unfamiliar with that to begin with. But I get some of that honey cough drop. I get some tart white grape, tart white wine, but it has like a syrupy quality. It's like if you maybe did like a bit of a white wine reduction, or you made it into kind of a syrup sort of a thing. I'm sure that probably has an actual word for it, but I'm not that fancy, so I'm not sure what it is. And there's a pretty good dose of saltiness on here as well. All right, sip number 2. So this is doing a real nice mixture of flavors and sensations. Talked about that in the past, like this idea of sensation complexity and flavor complexity. So you're getting tart and salty, you're getting sweet, and then you're getting a little bit of bitter from the kind of the ashiness, and you're getting just a real nice balanced, flavor quality. Again, probably not what I was expecting when I first picked this bottle up. It is brighter. It is more kind of white, sugary, sweet, and not so much dense fruitiness and chocolatey or anything like that, which, you know, maybe with that port cask would be what you're expecting. But it's got a nice finish on it as well. I've gotten some cocktail bitters. I'm not getting super herbal this time. I am getting a little more barrel spice, cigar spice on the finish today. And just kind of a nice sweet maltiness and that Ardbeg smoke. All right, so overall, I have been enjoying this quite a bit. This is really good. I've tasted this next to the Ardbeg 10, and it's definitely a departure from the 10, but it's not a giant leap, right? It's definitely going to be sweeter. It's going to be bringing a little bit more richness. It's going to be slightly more desserty. I mean, the Ardbeg 10 I would not consider to be anything close to a desserty whiskey. So depending on your sensitivity to sweet, maybe this is a massive departure from that, but generally speaking, I would say that this is a nice change of pace from your 10-year-old without being a major leap. Now, depending on what you're looking for in a special release, and particularly a special release that costs twice the amount of the 10-year-old. The 10-year-old here at Total Wine is $65. This is $130 there. As I mentioned, I did get $5 off for pre-ordering it, but at the end of the day, that's kind of lost in the wash. But yeah, I guess it depends on what you're looking for. This is an Ardbeg through and through. It's a nice change of pace. It's definitely bringing a slightly different approach to maybe some of the whiskeys we've seen from Ardbeg recently, at least the ones I've gotten to sample. But you're not getting this crazy departure that some of the other distilleries go for when they start releasing these like really heavily cask influenced versions of their whiskeys, or like big age statements and that sort of thing. So like I said, I've been enjoying this. I don't know if I enjoy it appreciably more than the 10-year-old, although I definitely feel like there's times where I wouldn't be in the mood for the Ardbeg 10, but I would be in the mood for this. So, I mean, make of that what you will, but generally speaking, I think the quality is there. I do enjoy the richness, the oily mouthfeel. It's got a pretty solid finish to it overall, and there's enough complexity here overall where I think this is another solid 7. That's also what I gave the Ardbeg 10, although I think this one's a little bit easier to enjoy because of the sweetness. It just kind of smooths out the process a little bit. And but yeah, I've given them both a 7, as I've given most of these kind of 10-year-old-ish heavily peated whiskeys from Islay or the islands, and this is fitting right in there with those. I don't think it's appreciably worse or better than any of them, but it is maybe a little bit more different than some of the other whiskeys that Ardbeg has released as in terms of their committee releases recently. Now, in terms of value, there is older whiskey in here. Obviously, that's not stated anywhere on the bottle. I have to imagine that the casks themselves weren't all that expensive, being, you know, from Glenmorangie to begin with, although I have no idea how that really works, so won't comment too much on that. But being twice the cost of the 10 is always going to be pushing it. Like, that's a lot of... It's an expensive bottle with no age statement on it, extensive marketing, which is probably raising the price by a good amount to begin with just all of the marketing that Ardbeg puts into these releases. It seems really unnecessary, and it really feels like they could allow just their reputation to carry them a bit and keep that price maybe a little bit more affordable. So this is a relatively poor value. There's no way around that. However, given the price ranges and the price increases across the board, this is like, if you love Ardbeg, you probably already know whether you're going to buy this or not. The Ugadal is up in the $100-ish range now. Korevrekan, but is that's 115. But those are higher ABV. At least the Ugadal is. I'm trying to remember if I think the Korevrekan's over 50%. So you're probably getting much better value sticking with those than the $130 you're going to pay for this. But with all that being said, I'm actually enjoying this quite a bit. I was pleasantly surprised. It's not really what I wanted. It's not really what I expected. I was hoping for a different experience, but as I've sipped on this over the last week or two, I've really enjoyed it. There's no getting around that. I think this bottle will probably go a little bit more quickly than the Fermutation, which is still sitting up here half full. So again, that one's not bad. It's just kind of meh. Especially that was really expensive. That was like $200 plus. So yeah, I don't know what to make of this. I'm not going to change anyone's mind. I'm not going to sit here and say I think Ardbeg is back or anything like that. But this one's nice. It's good. I'm enjoying it, and it's fit nicely into all of these heavily peated whiskeys I've been drinking lately, which I've got one more big one coming on the Monday after this. We'll be wrapping up that 18-year-old single malt series by looking at the Port Charlotte 18-year-old that was released earlier this year. And yeah, I'm looking forward to drinking as many refill bourbon barrel whiskeys as I can once I wrap that up, just to get my palate back a little bit. And good news is I've got a few good ones on the shelf. So until then, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much again for tuning in. And yeah, let me know what you think. Have you had a chance to try this? Have you completely given up on Ardbeg? Are you still willing to take the chance on something maybe special, them returning to their glory days? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't, and until next time, cheers.